Hey, how's it going, guys? Carson here, back with another video. This time, we're talking about Walking Dead 193. So, I guess just to be up front, we're going to talk full spoilers on the finale of The Walking Dead. That's right. All of a sudden, The Walking Dead's over. Like, who saw that one coming, I guess? So, Robert Kirkman just decided, to keep everything as unexpected as possible. We're gonna have fake solicits and all that good stuff, and eventually sneak this comic out on the shelves. So I guess here in a second, I'll give you guys my thoughts on The Walking Dead 193 and just this whole instance in general. So I guess we'll be right back. So I gotta be perfectly honest, when it comes to The Walking Dead, I haven't really been keeping track of The Walking Dead since probably about issue 100. Previously on my channel, I chronicled like all the ones I actually like enjoyed and read when I was collecting it. Basically, I read Walking Dead pretty hardcore, issues 30 through 100. The whole Negan stuff, it was just so bleak. I kind of just got out of the series after that, but I'll link that video below if you guys are interested in seeing my Walking Dead collection. 191, 192, if you guys have been living under a rock. Spoilers for that too, I guess, if you're still watching. But Rick gets shot and killed in issue 191 through 192, and you kind of get to see this send-off for Rick, and even though, Carl, obviously, he's pretty distraught about it. So that brings us to 193. So I guess we'll go ahead and get right into this issue, and then we'll talk a little bit more about it. So 193 opens up pretty much as the cover here describes. So it opens up Walker in a field by itself outside a lonely farmhouse there. So you get this Walker, and then you see this sword being unsheathed and used to cut a Walker's heads off. So you kind of expect that behavior out of maybe a Michonne or something. But then you turn the page and you realize it's a aged Carl Grimes that is wielding this sword. So immediately they tell you a lot of things here. The main thing is, they did the time jump again. This time a pretty big time jump, obviously, since Carl he's fully grown here. And he has Michonne's sword, so it kind of has you scratching your head like, well, if he has Michonne's sword, then where is she? So as you keep reading, you find out he looks like he is married now to Sophia, who's been in the book, obviously, for a very, very long time. And they have a daughter together named Andrea, which obviously is a callback to the Andrea we all knew and loved in the book. Unfortunately, she got killed off, I think, around, the 140s or 160s, which is an awesome issue, by the way. If you guys are looking for just good Walking Dead reads, I did pick that one up, and it was a phenomenal issue as well. I think it's one of the best Walking Dead single issues they ever made. But anyway, back to 193 here. You kind of start to explore the world that has been created in the aftermath of the Walking Dead series. It resembles a lot of the Old West, as you can kind of see here. As an unknown figure rolls up in a thing that says, "See the Walking Dead. Don't get too close." So obviously they enjoy their gimmicks in the post-apocalyptic world, I guess. But you know who doesn't appreciate it? That's Carl Grimes. So Carl immediately decks this guy. You kind of figure out who this person is too. His name's Herschel, and it's the son of Maggie and presumably Glenn, I would guess. Like I said, I haven't really read since the death of Glenn, who was one of my favorite characters in the Walking Dead run, which that's why this issue is a little bit heartbreaking to me a little bit, just because I always liked Glenn and Maggie in the run I read. Seeing their son as this like Weasley jerk, basically, who's upset that one of his zombies gets killed, and he's taking Carl to court over it. Gotta say, that's a little bit of a letdown, but hey, no one's perfect, obviously. Carl, the Walker he killed, belonged to Herschel. Well, Herschel Jr., Herschel, whatever you want to call him. New Herschel in this book, not the original Herschel from the original one, obviously. So Herschel takes Carl to court, and you're probably just like, why is he being taken to court? He killed a Walker. So in this world, they're so used to not being in a world with walkers again, that they're more considering this walker Herschel's property than a threat, because where they live, the walkers haven't been a threat for decades. So as we go on here, you see this kind of like sham of a court case, where who knows what the original decision the judge was going to make. But then we get a kind of a run-in from President Maggie. So Maggie has kind of taken over the government in this new world they've created. So thus the New World Order, which was before all of these issues, obviously. So Maggie shows up and kind of gives her 2 cents on this whole, like I said, it's kind of a sham of a trial. Like, why are they debating this? Who knows? But that's, you know, kind of the world that they live in at this point. So Maggie gives her judgment, and she says that nothing will happen to Carl as long as he replaces Herschel's walker, which sounds crazy. And of course, like, at least in this one, Carl's the voice of reason. He's just like, it's a walker. Come on, Maggie. We were running from these things for years. Like, I'm not going to replace that. But her, you know, because she's the president, her ruling's final. So instead of going and getting some walkers, though, we find out Herschel has this kid who is looking at his wagon. He's like, Herschel, come quick. And you kind of see that the wagon is now full of dead walkers. So there you go. Carl, I guess, in my opinion, did the right thing, taking out all those walkers. But Herschel, as you can see by his face, he is not happy. So at this point, we've got Carl now. He's going on a supply run because obviously if he just committed a crime, he doesn't want to be sitting at home. So he kind of uses this as an excuse to go on a supply run. I guess just so he can kind of clear his head of things a little bit. But then he gets joined by Lydia, who has Rick's old hat, so I thought that's pretty awesome. That even the hat, you know, Rick originally had an issue on, has survived this entire series somehow, so I thought that was a nice touch. Crazy enough, the first person that Carl tries to go and deliver supplies to is Negan, but they've kind of, they haven't really heard or seen of Negan, presumably this whole time. He just has this like grave for Lucille by his tree outside his door. But then Carl kind of reveals he kind of likes going and visiting Negan because it reminds him, you know, because Negan knew his father, it reminds him of his father. So in a weird, twisted way, he likes going to see Negan. But as he kind of goes on, this is kind of where you get a little bit more feel of the world around them. Like, you get to see this panel where there's like a bunch of birds, because the humans haven't been really controlling like animal populations, for instance, and now there's tons of birds in their world, and it's just almost like a cloud to them. So that's pretty cool. Lydia and Carl kind of explore, you know, their past relationship basically, which obviously Carl's not comfortable with because he has a wife and kid at home now. And they kind of talk about the old eye patch issue. So you get the one, probably the only gross shot in the whole, you know, the whole comic from Charlie Adler, because Charlie Adler, he had to give you one. So you get, you know, the Carl eye socket shot at least once. But he says he leaves on the eye patch just so daughter Andrea, doesn't have to be reminded of the world that they saved people like Andrea from. So I thought that was a nice touch. So then they keep going out west, and like I said, it's kind of like, you know, the old Wild West at this point, the world they live in. You get this nice splash panel of train track being created. And the guy helping make this train track and the transportation happen in this world is Eugene. So you get a nice Eugene cameo kind of in this book, so I thought that was really awesome. So instead of being, you know, this fraud that we kind of got introduced to way back when in Walking Dead, now he's using his brain for the right thing and creating a train line so they can get from point A to point B much faster. And you kind of just see some of these other characters. Like, I'm not too familiar with this character here, I gotta be honest, but apparently her dad and Rick had a run-in where people got killed, so awkward conversation ensues for Carl. So I wish I knew more about that, so I'll definitely have to go maybe try to reread that and see what's going on there. But since the supply run was done, Carl goes back home, and of course the cops are waiting on him there. At this point, they expect Carl to be put on trial. They keep calling them like informal proceedings for whatever reason. But nonetheless, you have a Judge Hawthorne that is presiding over this one, a high-up judge in their new world. But who's that judge actually turned out to be but Michonne? So Michonne has survived up to this point, and she basically, luckily, like Carl, has common sense in this instance. She starts quoting, lines that have, held a lot of weight previously in the series, about basically talking about, the human race really learned to live when the dead rose up. That theme basically that's been going on throughout the entire series. And obviously she had the relationship with Rick. She doesn't want to see Carl suffer for something this goofy and petty. So you get a nice moment between Michonne, Carl, and even Maggie and her son sitting there. They're kind of realizing that, the human race can't get complacent again, because the overall theme, I think, in this is, try not to get complacent with the world you live in. Be thankful for what you have, and, remember those who gave it to you, basically. So there's a lot of, I guess you could call it Rick worship in this comic, where you'll eventually see a Rick statue that was erected outside a courthouse. People just give Rick Grimes a lot of credit for establishing this world they lived in, but Michonne and Carl are having this conversation about, everyone else that was around them too, and they say Rick gets too much credit, but for some of the things he doesn't get enough credit. Just the fact that he was an inspiration to the people around him, and that he, his actions obviously created the world where they can think about zombies as, possessions for a guy like Herschel instead of a threat. So the overall thing going on here is Carl remembers they were a threat, and he's just trying to remind the rest of the world that, so none of this happens again. Because obviously if one person gets bit, 2 people will, 4, 8, 16, so on and so forth. And he's just trying to make sure his daughter Andrea can live in a world where they don't have to live like he did as a kid. So this issue closes out, and I think this is probably like the nicest possible ending Robert Kirkman could have given it. It closes out, you kind of see shots of the world they live in, while Carl is basically reading the story of Rick Grimes to his daughter. So there have actually been books written about Rick Grimes at this point in their universe. So you get the closing shots. Just, there's no zombies, just everyone's happy. You even get the one shot of Negan right there putting flowers on Lucille's grave. And the closing shot is probably like one of the most nicest, sweetest, get those happy tears going. Or I guess I should say couple, so you get a double page splash of Carl and his daughter smile. How many times, you can probably count on one hand how many times Carl has smiled throughout 193 issues of The Walking Dead. And you get to see this big old 2-page smile spread there. And then the final panel, happy tears ensue. You get Carl sitting on a rocking chair with his daughter. So I think at the end of the day, it sucks that, Rick got shot and killed off the way he did. But I think if, Rick could have saw Carl and his granddaughter sitting in a rocking chair together smiling, I think any sacrifice would have been worth it to Rick for that ending. So I thought that was a really cool way to end it. Albeit a shocking conclusion, the fact that it actually ended. But if you guys do pick this up or can find a copy, I highly recommend reading the Robert Kirkman letter at the very end of this, because he has a lot of cool things to say, and just it's an explanation as to why he ended it, and that it wasn't just something he did as a gimmick to sell books or anything, or get the speculation up. It turns out he's had this thing planned for roughly 4 years. So he was kind of hoping for 300 issues, but he realized the pacing he was at in the story at the time, he had that goal. There was no way he was going to be able to fill 300 issues worth of story without it just feeling like filler. So I definitely respect the fact that Robert Kirkman decided, as hot and as popular as The Walking Dead has been this decade, he looked at it and he's just like, I would rather end it on a high note than drag it out and, just to collect a paycheck, basically. So kudos to Robert Kirkman. Overall, was this a satisfying ending for a 193 issue run of Walking Dead? Overall, I would say yes. Just because the main reason I fell out of The Walking Dead to begin with, way back in issue 100, It was just so bleak, and there was just no hope for these characters. And I heard Robert Kirkman in several interviews and stuff say, you know, he had no intentions of ending on a happy ending or anything, because most zombie movies, if you're a zombie movie fan, you know how most of those end since Night of the Living Dead in the late 60s. You know, they're bleak endings. The characters get killed off. They barely fly away with any gasoline in their helicopters, so on and so forth. And Robert Kirkman even admits in the letter at the end of this that he originally intended to end it around 75, showing a bleak humanity where they had that Rick statue and there were vines growing around it, and it was in Alexandria, but there were also walkers all over the place at the same time. So kind of indicating that they won, but after a longer period of time, they lost again. So very bleak original planned out ending there. So who knows what would have happened if Robert Kirkman ended it on issue 75 instead of issue 193. But yeah, I was just very happy and pleasantly surprised that he gave us that last panel with Carl and his daughter in the rocking chair, you know, laughing and smiling. I would have never called that in a million years. So I fully anticipated picking up this issue and just seeing, you know, more chaos, more characters getting killed off, and maybe, you know, just someone we know, or maybe a whole new group of characters grasping onto humanity and keeping up the good fight against the walkers. So I was happy they did the time jump. I actually kind of wanted to see something like this way back when in issue 50, because I kind of anticipated they're doing a little bit of time jump after the governor stuff, but they didn't. So this is what I wanted a long time ago. So hopefully you guys can grab this up before the goofballs like me get it, who haven't been subscribing to The Walking Dead for years, and, you know, let's be honest, speculators are going after them too. So good luck getting your $3.99 copy. If not, just read it digitally, obviously, because it's definitely worth the read. It runs about, I think, 71 pages, and it was $3.99, so shout out to Image for that. Usually it'd be a $10 or $12 book if it came from the big two. So with that, thank you guys if you watched this far. If you guys want to see me do more reviews, this is like the first time I think I've reviewed a single book on this channel. Just let me know. Give me some feedback in the comments below. And until next time, I will see you guys later. Thanks, and have a good night.